Alright everyone, so I'm almost done. Now you can see here I filled as much space, almost as much space as I can with the foam backer rod. It is helping absorb some of the vibration, but there isn't a whole lot of room to play with here in the mag well, where all of the trigger mechanism and other moving parts are, and of course the plunger's up here. So there isn't too much room to play with in here. I filled the handle completely with hot glue and a lot of BBs, and that's actually preventing the handle from warping in your hand as you hold it, so it doesn't creak anymore, and it just feels real sturdy. Also helps with vibration dampening. Now, something I did, the priming handle that I talked about, I had to cut it shorter, and I did that, but I cut it just a little too short. I didn't have any precision tools for it. I was using a grinder, so the end is smoothed over, so you're not too likely to cut yourself on that if you remove the priming handle. Also, it came with these two thick black washers to help with the spacing, and when I cut it just a little too short, these were just too thick. So I went to Ace and picked up some of these little different sizes of these little silicone washers, or sorry, Teflon washers. I looked at the silicone ones, and you see these two little ones, they nest together very well, giving me the inner diameter I want and the outer diameter I want. And I epoxied those onto the handle, 2 deep, which is still thinner than those original plastic washers were. Sorry. And importantly, this gives it just the right tolerances. It gives it just enough room to slide back and forth, and still allowing me to add felt padding, so this won't scuff up the paint job as bad. Over a few years of use, it will start to wear down, but this just makes, again, it makes the priming handle really solid, helps, just makes this prime really smooth, and it'll keep this from scuffing up the really nice paint job. And then the way I applied that padding is I took some of these Ace brand felt pads, and I just took a hole clipper, hole puncher, and I put it over this like that, while, sorry I only got 2 hands here, while this was still on the backing rod, and as you can see here, punched a hole through, and that gave me a hole just the right size. And I'm going to do that to this one as well. Now, I'm almost done here with the segment. You can see I sanded down while wearing a mask, mind you, the epoxy putty, so it's nice and smooth. Once that's greased, this trigger will slide just as well as it did originally. I also reinforced the bolt sled a little further, just because, like I said, I overdo everything. And you can see I've got the Nerf metal brackets on the inside, and this is coat hanger that I drilled a hole through this piece here with my Dremel. Put epoxy in there, and put this little bit of coat hanger in there. It won't interfere with it sliding forward and back. Now, something I have to point out, if you have this part on the bottom sticking any further back this way, it will interfere with the way the bolt sled slides. Also, I had it just like this on the other side and discovered that since on the left half of the shell, these rails it runs in stick a little further out from the inside, on the left side, this piece was catching, and I really didn't like that. So I took my Dremel, and it took some time and a lot of steady hand work. I had to be very careful, and I had to Dremel this almost flush. It's not perfectly flush, but there's a little give in the shell. It moves just fine now. See, just like that. It's not sticking out anymore. So if I ever do this again, and I probably will, I'm probably not going to drill a hole here anymore. I'm just going to make this metal piece run flush to this slide. Hey everyone, so I've got all the internals inside. This is what it looks like. Here's the stock and the blaster itself. This is just the right side where all the internals are in place. For comparison, here are the internals of a stock Longshot. I've been using this one as a reference just to make sure I have everything else here in place. Here's the stock, the shoulder stock of a stock blaster and the stock block in mine. You can see the metal reinforcements in the bolt sled. Something I was very careful to do with this blaster, I greased it more than most people I think would, because I don't anticipate the recipient will be maintaining this blaster, at least not for a few years. So I am over greasing it. I'll probably, after testing, take it apart, see where the grease ends up building up and where it isn't, and you know, adjust some more, put some more grease in there accordingly. And I'd also like to point out one thing I had to fix. You can see here on the stock blaster, this is the dart tooth. This pushes the dart back into the breech tube and allows it to have any sort of seal. Well, I cut the blaster off along this line, right at the very tip of my finger here. I cut the bottom of the shell off, and look at that. So I cut it all the way back to here, and then attached this Longshot rail, and it was keeping this dart tooth from moving down all the way. I can't give you a real good close-up, but you might be able to see the rough edges right here. I had to cut that with a Dremel and with a just a set of cutters, these, and now the bolt sled moves, or sorry, the dart tooth moves freely up and down, and it's covered by this piece here that I already have on the other side of the shell. So all is good, and the next shot ought to be the finished product. Hello everybody, I am pleased to announce that this blaster is finished. This will be the last segment in the video showing how I made this thing, and I want to show you all the parts here. We've got the stock, the scope, the blaster, tactical light, barrel extension, and the super cool, super comfy vertical foregrip and bipod. All of this will be included, plus a handful of clips. I'll detail that in the final video later on. Now here you can see a stock Longshot that I've taken apart. The only thing that's not factory standard in this blaster is the fact that the upper tactical rail has been removed to be glued right there. Now, when I was tuning this blaster, and tuning is what I say when you put a blaster together, you test it, something doesn't work exactly the way you want it to, you have to make little adjustments for it. While I was tuning this blaster, a couple of things came up. First of all, the plunger, which moves up and down inside this plunger tube, I added padding. That padding has thickness, and that thickness prevented some of these parts from moving forward and back the way they ought to. Now here you'll see the very top of the plunger rod. Well, with the padding, that plunger rod didn't move far enough forward to disengage this bolt lock, and I wanted that gone. So I took the bolt lock out anyway, and then, interestingly enough, this bolt lock keeps this stem here in the bolt sled from wiggling side to side. And when I would one-hand prime the blaster on the right side, the stem would be pushed to the left and impact this part right here on the shell. So on the final blaster, this part here, where my fingernail's pointing, I'm sorry this isn't in better resolution, that has been rounded off. That corner right there in the middle, I rounded that a little bit. So no longer does the bolt get locked on me. The next thing I had a problem with, this breech tube wouldn't move backwards as far as it should while trying to chamber a dart. So the clip actually wouldn't fit in here. If you look on my Facebook page, which I'll provide a link to in the description, there's a picture showing how I cut just a little bit off the front bottom of the breech tube so that the clip can still be accepted. The next thing I did while I was during the tuning process, here you see the lock, the physical lock that holds the barrel extension in place. Well, you can also see the paint scraped up a little bit here. That's because the tolerances are very tight, and after I added all this thick layer of paint, well, it was scraping. So I took a Dremel, and on this back edge, right here, I sanded this back edge down a little bit. So there's a little more free room, and now this doesn't screw up the paint anymore when you put the barrel extension on. I also, as you can see here, the original Longshot, and on mine, I removed that section so that this stock is now removable. You just use the brake to lock and unlock it. The last thing I did was inside the dead space in the plunger system. I had originally filled most of it with epoxy putty, but there was still a little space left. I wanted to fix that up for my own reasons that I'll explain at another time in a different video, maybe on my Facebook page. And I finished filling that in with hot glue, which wasn't easy while leaving the plunger tube intact, but I got it done. And it actually increased performance a little bit. Just that slight bit of dead space shows you just how important all of that is. And this blaster fires even further now, and it is incredibly accurate. So I am very pleased with this blaster. I have a link in the description down below to my Facebook page where you can get some better detailed images of this. You can talk to me about it if you'd like and see other projects that I'm working on. You can also find a link down there actually on the video now, showing the final video where I present this thing in all its glory to the customer. Go check that out, and thank you very, very much for watching. Keep your stick in the ice.